What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with your Gups Corner Cup preview for the John Deere Classic. But before we jump to that, let's look back at last week's 3M. I know that I got a lot of responses with the type of strategy that I decided to employ last week, which was an optimized lineup as opposed to building it by hand. And we'll talk more about it in a second, but what it was is essentially finding the biggest gap in between the golfers who have played well tee to green this season and have putted, that was a weird way to say that, putted poorly in the last 30 days. And then it took ownership into account as well. So that's the long story short. If you want to go back and watch last week's video, I'll explain it in depth, and actually it has sparked a lot of discussion. So there'll be an optimizer video coming out here in the near future. But let's look at last week's lineup and excuse me, what we ended up with. So you'll notice these are a lot of golfers that have things in common, which are they play well tee to green, but have been putting really bad recently. And hold on, I actually want to jump back up here and talk about this. This is not bad putters. This is not necessarily guys that lose strokes putting every single week. This is golfers who are putting below their 2019 baseline. So if you are an excellent putter and you are putting average in the last 30 days, you might show up on this list. It is not just strictly bad golfers. It is golfers who are playing underneath their baseline that we would expect to come back. That's the big difference here. All right. This lineup, it ended up with Bud Cauley, Charlie Hoffman, Sung Kang, Brooks Koepka, Troy Merritt, and Adam Svensson. There is a lot to unwrap here. No surprise that this is 6 guys with none of them being more than 13.5% owned, which was Koepka. The other 5 guys are all in single digits. 2 of them are 3% or lower. When you start to roster guys that haven't been putting well, they probably haven't been near the top of leaderboards necessarily. So it's really no shock, especially because these names are kind of all over the place, that we got 5 really low owned golfers. And quite honestly, we got 6 guys under 13.5 in a 144 person contest is pretty incredible. So anyway, a lot of good and bad here. Kind of what we expected where, well, I shouldn't say that. What I'll say is this. Koepka, unfortunately, getting the stud at 13.5% owned, for him to finish 65th is just an absolute waste of a roster spot, quite frankly. If he goes out and wins this thing, obviously it's a much different story. Even if he just top 10s it, it's a much different story. The 2 guys, so here's what's interesting. Troy Merritt and Adam Svensson both made Friday charges. Both shot 64, 7 under, made Friday charges. Troy Merritt notches a top 10 with a T7. Adam Svensson finishes T15. So for their prices, that is exactly the outcome that we were looking for. And maybe we played with fire a little bit here, trying to get the same result from 6 of these guys. We got it from 2. And then Sung Kang misses the cut with his 5 over Friday. What's actually interesting is you look at this, after one round, Merritt, Svensson, Kang, Hoffman, and Cauley were all either even par or 1 under. And they just went in different directions, right? Merritt and Svensson go in the good way. Kang goes in the bad way. Charlie Hoffman just kind of sits there and doesn't do anything and misses the cut. Bud Cauley shoots a 60, 67, makes the cut, ends up finishing T34. So I'm actually kind of happy with the way this turned out. I really do enjoy the concept of this lineup. Of this optimization strategy. You're going to get a bunch of low-owned guys, but what it might bring a little too much volatility into it. And we need to do multiple weeks of a lot more lineups to try to figure this out, which I'll do on my own. I won't continue to do it here for the GC Cup. But if this was just a Merritt and Svensson, if we were just going out of our comfort zone and kind of doing this with Merritt and Svensson, and those were the 2 that we landed on, and the rest of our lineup was much more of a natural build or guys that are playing better, that might have been the way to go. To try to take on like 5 of these guys that you kind of need to all come back to their average at one time may not have been advisable. But I'm actually pretty happy with the result, right? I mean, Svensson and Merritt do exactly what you want them to do. Cauley was just fine. Kang was fine through one round, gave it all away, and then Charlie Hoffman just kind of sat there. So, I mean, it's like, it is what it is. All right. We ended up finishing 84, so we did not cash here, which is now 2 straight weeks. So we have now dropped to 81st in this contest. So we are still well within the 125 that is going to be cut here in, let's see, this week's the John Deere. So we've got 1, 2, 3. We've got 4 more tournaments before the playoffs begin. If you're in the top 125, you will make the playoffs. So we're within that, but we are in danger of getting cut almost immediately when it goes down to 70 at the BMW Championship. So we're gonna need a little help here. So what are we going for this week? I have opted to not. So I will optimize lineups on my own. I'll do those optimized strategies. I'll throw like a bunch of lineups in the $1 just so that we can kind of see how it goes. But I hand built this lineup. So if you want to go back and watch a DFS video, you'll probably see how I kind of landed on these guys. But the thought process is still kind of similar. Troy Merritt and Adam Svensson, we're going to run them back. They just are guys that their prices didn't move much and the field got much weaker. It's probably one of the weakest fields of the year. So those are guys that flashed enough for me last week. Their prices didn't move all that much. We're going to plug them right back in. Martin Laird kind of follows the same sense of golfers who are playing well tee to green and putting below their average. Laird is usually a slightly positive putter. He's been really bad in the last 30 days or so. We're going to see if he can turn it around. Ryan Palmer is someone that I talked a lot about on the DFS video. So now that we have finally a course that we've played before on the PGA Tour after 2 weeks of not having course history, the TPC Deere Run course stats are fairly strongly correlated, and Palmer steps up on a lot of them. So his name popped off. The only knock against him is that he hasn't played. Seems fine. No injury. Twitter looks good. He's hanging out with his family, so all good there. We're going to fire up Ryan Palmer, and we're also going to fire up Ryan Moore, who, again, I just really think when you look at his stats, he should be finishing better than he is. So this is an expectation for a guy that has won this tournament in the past, that he, of course, has the skill set for Deere Run. He just hasn't been putting it all together. If he can do it this week, I think he's in a really good spot at 92. And then Brian Harmon, again, former winner, coming in with 2 top 8s in his last 3 starts, I believe, $9,400. We're going to plug him in, and we left $400 on the table. So there you go. That's the lineup I'm going to roll out. Let me know what you think. Tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand, or leave a comment below. See ya.